Well, I've been thinking, and I'm thinking, and planning, and all that kind of stuff. And, well, I know I've been saying for the last couple episodes that we're gonna build a tree right here. Um, I don't know if that's gonna happen anymore. um, I've been thinking, like I said, and I kind of remembered something about the plan and the layout of the city that I want to make here. Or town, or whatever. I don't know if you really call it a city. This is the church, right? And churches face east-west. Usually east. This one faces west by accident. That wasn't intentional, but I'm not gonna, rebuild it and rotate it 90 degrees. It faces east-west. That's fine with me. But I wanted this city to be on a grid. Now, we already have kind of a rectangular or square little lot here around the church. That's good. We can kind of replicate that across the city and that will all work out. But I wanted this build to kind of be off the grid a little bit, if that makes sense, where it kind of just doesn't fit in with the rest of the city. It kind of works off the grid at kind of maybe an angle or something like that. Now, angles are hard to build in Minecraft, especially when it comes to roads and then building buildings right up next to the road. That's something that's I just don't want to do. So we're gonna have to work off the grid in a different way, and I think the way that we're going to do that is by having this one be east-west long ways and everything else would be north-south long ways. So it kind of looks different from a distance, and if you look closer you can kind of tell why. I think that'll work pretty good. I think that's a good idea. I think that's how we're going to build this. In which case, I really want a road that goes north-south right through here. I think that will look really cool, and I think that will also work with some of the other things that we wanted to keep in mind. For instance, over here on this last bit of white wool, we wanted to keep this sightline clean so that we could see the whole church and there wasn't anything in our way. Now, we can do that if we kind of get smart with some things, and one of those things is roads, distance. We can build a sidewalk, maybe out to right here, a little bit of a road, and then another sidewalk, and then you can stand right here on the sidewalk, probably with your back right up against a wall, and see the church at this angle. It won't be framed by trees because a tree in the middle of the road kind of doesn't make much sense, but we can kind of incorporate other elements to try and frame it, maybe like a street lamp, and then maybe I don't know, something else on the other side. And we can kind of also get away with, if we add another road going this way, seeing at least most of the church. I do think there will be a little bit of a cutoff from this angle right here if we kind of have a road that goes right through there, and then a building right here. We might have a little bit of a cutoff right there because the building is going to be right there, right? But we'll still be able to see most of the church, especially the front with the little steeple and everything. I think it'll look good. That's the idea. Now, if we have a road going through here, I kind of don't want this courtyard here. We have this courtyard planned. We even have a little bit of blocks and gravel and all that kind of stuff placed. And it'll have to go, probably. I'm thinking it's going to end up just not being here, which means that this tree is not going to be here. Now, we also want another road that goes right through here so that we can have this other viewing angle that we wanted to keep. This one clean as well, so we can have another road that goes through there, a road that goes through there, in which case this is basically just going to be an intersection. And there's kind of a couple ways that we could kind of handle that. I think the best way though is with a big square, just having a big square, like town square, in front of the church. I think that makes the most sense. We can even have a tree here, maybe in that square, but we'll figure that out once we actually get into how the build is going to look. I think what we're going to do this episode though is mostly just focus on the plans, laying out wool, and trying to figure out where things are going to be. So, just go ahead and do that. Let's get started. Well, I think we have good plans marked out here. That's not too big or too many, but I think it gets the point across. We have a street that goes north-south here, and it is the widest street. It's pretty big. Our scale here is a little bit large, actually. I didn't intend that, but the church ended up kind of being very detailed, and that ends up being a large scale. And, well, that's what we ended up with. But because these are such big streets, I also don't want to just have empty streets everywhere. I think it needs to have something going on in that, and we'll figure that out as we go. It could be vehicles, something like that. It could just be like armor stands. I don't think that'll look very good though, because I don't have the armor stand mod, so it's not really a good idea. Yeah, I think this is a good plan. So there are a couple things worth mentioning, so let's go ahead and go down there. The first one is our viewing angle over here. If you looked a little bit closely, and you don't have to look as closely now, but our little viewing angle, which is this white wool right here, is in this brown wool. This brown wool marks out the buildings and where the buildings are going to go, and you can see the wall of this building would be right where our marker is. That is kind of an issue. Of course, it's not that big of an issue because we can just press W and boom, we have the same viewing angle pretty much. I think that could just be the solution I end up using. That's not really a big issue. The other thing we could do is inset this even more and then use the building as kind of a way to frame the church. We can have like a little porch or something with like some pillars on either side, and that could end up being a pretty good idea. Of course, we could just have the viewing angle right here and push the building back a block. That's all perfectly good solutions, I think. And also, another thing to add, while we're standing here, we're not going to be able to, we are going to be able to see the entire church. We don't really have to worry about this building that's going to be right here, because it'll start a little bit back behind the sidewalk, probably like right here, and we'll see the whole thing, including this whole tree, which I think is nice. Yeah, I think this is pretty much a much better plan than what we originally had, which means we're gonna need to get rid of this at some point, I think. We'll also probably we'll probably keep the red wool right here for the framing just for now, because you never know. But I think this all has to go. I think it's time to just kind of mine this all back up, put it in the shulker boxes where it came from, and probably pick up some of this wool as well. I do want to probably do something like a square, like I said, in this area. I think that will look nice, but of course this has to go first. So let's go ahead and do that, and let's see how long that takes before I decide to do anything else. It's gone. Now we just have a dirt donut on the floor here, and yeah, I think it's it's time to move on a little bit. We can't really do much. I don't have much time. It's already Thursday somehow. I don't know how that happened, but it's Thursday. So we're going to move on to something I can do quick, so that doesn't take a lot of time. We're going to start placing grass. We're going to kind of try and cover up at least a little bit of this area now that we're trying to kind of expand here, so that if I've come up with a plan for this building, we don't have to try and dodge this hole. So let's go ahead, get some grass from my storage and start placing. I don't think I'm gonna flatten or dig anything out. Maybe a little bit over here. We might need a little bit more room. We'll see. It shouldn't be too much. But let's go ahead and get a little bit of stuff done. okay, I think we got enough grass to at least get started on maybe a building or two. But obviously we don't have time for that this week. We will probably actually need to expand this little bit of grass out a little bit further if we're going to get started on this building. But the other ones probably have more than enough room. And I did kind of make sure, so I kind of carved out a little bit more of this hill. We should be able to at least do this building and maybe that building over there without placing any more grass. Hopefully, I think. Yeah, I think we could, especially since the size of this lot is pretty small. We have another road going right through there. Actually, might not have this road right here. We might change that around. Um, yeah, I think we're in a pretty good spot. I I actually don't want this area to be completely flat. Um, right now, of course, it is very flat. It's easiest to build from a completely flat little patch of grass. But the town, I do want to have a little bit of height variation in it. Not very much, because I mean, towns tend to be built in flat places, especially really old towns like this. But I think a little bit of height variation could add to the build in a positive way. I don't know really how to pull it off though. So right now we're still just going off of a completely flat template. It's easiest to build off of flat grass anyways. So yeah, that's what we're doing. I think I don't have time to actually get started on anything. I don't think I can start actually like building anything. I don't have any creative plans really on any of these buildings just yet. So we're gonna leave it here for today, I think. So this is the outro. Thank you guys all for watching, and God bless.